I always get pretty excited when a Falling Frontier video drops because you just never know what's going to be inside of it. Well, Falling Frontier just released a new video over the Hano ship and combat reveal trailer, at least that's what IGN calls it, and I gotta say, it is one heck of an awesome trailer and shows off a lot of new features about the game that we haven't seen before. So in this video, I'm going to go over my impressions of the cinematic trailer side of things, and then once we get to the actual ship-on-ship combat, there's a lot to dig into there. So first and foremost, hang around with me. We're gonna watch the very first part, the very cinematic aspects, and we'll be right back.
Is it confirmed?
Yes, it's confirmed. 4th Fleet is engaged in operations around Jupiter.
Well, who else is there?
The Caligula and Richmond.
Okay, patch me in.
Caligula, this is Comsat Fleet, over. This is Caligula, roger, over. This is Comsat Fleet. Thea holds contact with probable Martian task force in vicinity of Saturn. Coordinates 4383, Mark 231, course unknown, speed unknown, strength unknown. Caligula and Richmond are ordered to divert from rendezvous with Erebus immediately and make best speed to intercept and destroy enemy task force. Formal orders to follow, over. This is Caligula, roger. Time to intercept 1 hour, out. All hands, we've been tasked with a hunter-kill order. ETA 1 hour. Prepare for an emergency turn and burn.
All right, I gotta say, I will never get tired watching that. I've probably watched it well over a dozen times now, just analyzing things, just looking at different aspects, seeing the cinematography that's coming into here, and I love everything about it. Combined with Scott Buckley's music, which is in the game currently, it just creates a fantastic atmospheric event that really gets me hyped for this game. There's a few things that we want to look at here though. First and foremost is the kind of intro, the overlaying of the comms chatter. Setting up that scenario is really, really nice, and it's a little more above and beyond than what we've seen before. But then as we prepare to zoom into the Hano ship, taking a quick pause at the space station. This space station is new. Previously, I think the space stations were more along the lines of the International Space Station. You know, lots of small modules with big solar panels to create energy and house people. This looks a little more large-scale fantasy, I guess you could say. We've seen this in kind of the Anvil overview of kind of a more refined space station, but this looks really, really good, and hopefully it makes it into the game. Perhaps it's faction specific, I really don't know. But then zooming through to see the Hano ship in all of its glory is magnificent, and this is because unlike in previous Falling Frontier gameplay trailers, for the most part, they've been not using super unique ships. They do look rather standard, and while those might still be in the game, I don't know, the Hano ship is 100% its own ship. It is custom made for Stutterfox. It is custom made by Todd and the 3D artist he is working with. They have worked together to create this unique ship, and they're going to plan on making many others. It is a beautiful work of art. There's so many things that I love about this Hano ship that really take it above and beyond than what we've seen in Falling Frontier before. But it's also the attention to detail within this trailer and the minute small things that just allow that for a level of immersion. Things like that comms chatter I mentioned before is just really, really nice. After giving the orders, the command to, wake up the turrets and seeing the ice break off of it. And then combined even with like the naval whistle whenever they turn and burn. Turning and burning is also really, really cool. But just that naval whistle aspect, I'm gonna mention this a few times in the video. It's important to remember that Todd really wants to give this aspect of ocean style naval warfare, but in space. He is taking aspects of naval warfare, of naval command, of all of the things that we experience here on Earth and implementing it into space in a really great way. So a naval whistle is a small thing to think about, but once I heard that naval whistle, I was like, oh crap, okay, this is really cool. I really enjoyed just that small little thing that got me into that naval idea and that naval mindset. And of course, turning and burning isn't something we can quite do here on Earth, but turning and burning does look really stinking cool as we see those ships break away. But more than just the cinematic trailer, we do have a lot of really cool information in the Combat Evolved section. And yes, I'm calling it Combat Evolved because there is an evolution of combat gameplay that hasn't been in the previous iterations of combat and warfare that we've seen in previous gameplay videos. First and foremost, for me as a designer, and for me considering that the user interface of any game is of utmost importance, the user interface has been vastly updated. We are seeing a great typographical hierarchy of a lot of really good things coming in. We're seeing a refinement in information while still keeping to this dark gray blue, and gold schematic, which looks really, really clean, and it stands out amidst the backdrop of empty space, which is where a lot of your gameplay is going to take place. But we see a lot of other things, like a refinement in how ships are displayed. There's a lot of information to be had here, whether it's, I don't know what all these icons mean, but perhaps ship defenses, you have potentially fuel, food, armaments as well. You see a refinement in the portrait style than what we had before. Information in terms of how you evolve into combat is looking much better as well. There's a lot of easily digestible pieces, I guess is kind of what I'm going for. All of the things that we're seeing here look and make sense, and we just need a tiny bit of context to truly understand what everything is going on. Not only that though, weapon targeting and movement is something that has evolved, and that kind of leans into the user interface as well. We haven't really seen targeting and ship movement like we have in this small little gameplay scenario, such as the forward and rear VLSs coming into play, where you can target which ones are going to be attacking the ship. You can actually set your target. So I would assume that setting your target would allow you to move the ship, and it's just going to always be trying to target that specific ship, because you are on ship-based turrets, almost like you have in ocean naval warfare. As I mentioned before, some turrets aren't going to be in play quite as much, so you're going to have to turn your ship to broadside, which is just a really fun aspect to the gameplay. Now, it's also important to remember, I saw some comments in IGN's trailer centering on the issue of constantly having to target things yourself and or directing things personally, which may create a little bit of a click fest. I want to also remind anyone who is watching that Falling Frontier is not meant to be a large-scale naval warfare system. As in, you're not going to have hundreds of ships. This is not Sins of a Solar Empire. This is not Stellaris. This is potentially not even a homeworld scenario. This is a small level where you may have, I don't remember what it is now. I don't know if it's anywhere between like 20 to 50 ships total, but you're not going to have them all together. So this idea of manually targeting, manually locking on, and manually moving ships is this idea that we are only going to have small scale engagements throughout the entirety of the game. So you are going to be able to manage these ships much better. This 2v1 may be way more normal than a 5v5, if that makes sense. Just something to think about as you're watching the gameplay footage, as it goes on in the background, and as we are looking at things. But we've also seen lots of other cool things. We haven't seen rockets quite like this before. The PDCs we've seen in a previous trailer briefly, but we haven't seen these turrets fighting off these rockets quite as intensely as we do in this. And it looks great. Gives off some fantastically massive Expanse vibes, which I know is at least somewhat of an inspiration if they're not trying to mimic it directly. But it does look and feel great. Rockets, as they explode, they are still spilling out their ordnance all the way through, so it's not something that is just like the rocket disappears and nothing happens to it. And we even see things like flares being used to divert rockets away from the ships. Now, I don't know the viability of how flares would operate in space, but again, we're leaning into this ocean naval warfare where perhaps flares we see in aerial combat I don't know why we wouldn't see it in space combat and why it wouldn't work in space combat as well. But again, it's a nice touch, whether those flares are limited, whether they are based on certain modules that you can customize your ship with. None of that is known right here. We don't see the details of these ships, such as armament levels for each different type of ordnance, but still it looks fantastic. And then one of the last things that I really want to bring into this is this idea of ship damage and of course friendly fire. Damage shows up on ships. Your turrets will impact and hit the ships, much like Nebula's Fleet Command, if you've ever seen stuff about that. And sometimes your missiles or your shots, your rail shots, will go through and pierce all the way through a ship. That damage shows up. The missiles explode on the ships. You see the physical damage that is there, and it all looks really, really great. Again, it's the idea of naval warfare and showing things as they are happening instead of something just looking fine, your health bar goes down, and then it just blows up. But then, of course, there's friendly fire. I mentioned this is on a 2D scale, of course, this 2D axis. It does mean that friendly fire is going to be a thing, and I know that was shown off intentionally to show off, hey, it is there, it does exist. So in the midst of these even smaller scale things, you're going to have to keep in mind where your ships are, where your enemy ships are, so that you don't shoot the player, you don't shoot your own ship, because that is a little bit embarrassing, but it's still rather humorous when I saw it. Guys, Falling Frontier is just looking great. I'm excited for it. There is no set release date, which I know is still frustrating for a lot of people, but believe me when I say that development is not a simple process, it's not an easy process, and I know, considering all of the terrible releases we've seen in 2023 so far, I am willing to wait however long it takes for Todd Darcy and his team to make a game of Falling Frontier that is what we have always wanted, that releases without groundbreaking bugs and releases with a good story, good mechanics, well balanced, and everything is well for launch. And I hope you're there with me too. That's all I got, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to give the channel a sub, hit the like button, and share any comments and concerns that you have down below. I know Todd would probably enjoy any feedback that he sees from this video. Thank you so much for watching. This is Havoc, and I'll see you in the next one.